What's going on, guys? This is DaWoblefet, and welcome to a video about how to grind efficiently for BP in the Battle Tower. There are several changes to the Battle Tower compared to the Battle Tree and Battle Mason of previous generations, and accounting for these differences is important when designing a team to use in the Battle Tower. I strongly recommend the rental team you see on your screen for use in singles play. I have an extra Rotom Heat on here for doubles as well, so you can use this team in both formats, but singles is the faster format to grind in. To start off, let's cover some of the differences in the Battle Tower this generation. As you probably noticed from the rental team, one major difference is that legendary Pokemon are now allowed. This is pretty substantial, as this allows us to use the super powerful Zacian Crown in addition to the fantastic Eternatus. The focus of this video is grinding for BP as fast as possible, so we'll definitely be taking advantage of our legendary options to do that. In addition, there are no longer such things as streaks. If you lose, the only really bad thing to happen is a small loss of time. The game does keep track of your overall win count though, for the purposes of giving out prizes. Speaking of which, these two positive changes to the Battle Tower come at a pretty significant cost in the prize department. Initially, as you play through the Battle Tower at the start, you'll get a decent number of prizes and bonus BP as you progress through the ranks. However, once you beat the main section of the Battle Tower, things start to slow down significantly. You only get 2 BP for each win. It doesn't matter if this is your 50th battle or your 500th battle. However, you do get some additional prizing, as seen in this chart. The left side indicates the prizing you'll receive before 200 wins, and the right side indicates the prizing you'll receive after 200 wins. The left side is basically a one-time thing until you reach 200 wins, then the right side repeats for every 100 wins. There are a lot of useful items up for grabs here, including Nature Mints, Gold Bottle Caps, and PP Maxes. However, the 2 BP per win restriction can feel pretty limiting. Naturally, we want to win games as fast as possible in order to get BP as fast as possible. So how do we do that? I got my original idea for the team from the Smogon Battle Tower discussion thread from user MagicXGame. In fact, I liked it so much that I basically just tweaked the EVs and moves, so props to him for originally making this team. Zacian Crown is stupidly good in singles. I've heard several people compare Zacian to Mega Rayquaza levels of strength in singles, and while I don't know if I'd go that far, I certainly understand why people think that. Zacian has Steel Fairy typing, a giant 170 base attack stat, and an insane 148 base speed. Because of how fast Zacian is naturally, it is only outsped by 6 of the 922 Pokemon sets in the Battle Tower, reducing the odds of falling to an untimely flinch or critical hit significantly. In addition, its ability, Intrepid Sword, gives it a free +1 attack on sending it out, which, coupled with its already insane starting attack, means Zacian pretty much OHKOs everything that doesn't resist one of its attacks. Iron Head turns into Behemoth Blade when in Crowned form, which is a 100 base power stab Steel-type move that does double damage against Dynamaxed Pokemon. In addition, it also has Stab Play Rough and Close Combat to round out coverage to hit Steel types. Swords Dance is a useful filler move to break through certain Pokemon that will survive one of Zacian's resisted attacks, or that can't damage Zacian at all, and after a Swords Dance, you pretty easily OHKO nearly every Pokemon in the Battle Tower. Gyarados is the next Pokemon chosen thanks to its natural synergy with Zacian, allowing it to resist the Fire and Ground-type moves Zacian is weak to. Gyarados is also stupidly good on its own merit, being one of the largest abusers in Dynamax that caused OU to vote Dynamax out of the tier. Dragon Dance lets Gyarados outspeed nearly the whole Battle Tower, and it can also boost its speed with Max Bounce. Max Waterfall sets Rain for Gyarados, allowing it to further boost Water-type attacks, and Max Earthquake is to round out coverage against Lantern, Duraludon, and Draco Volt, as well as a very specific situation that we'll go over later. Intimidate was chosen because Gyarados rarely needs the Moxie boosts, and Intimidate can help Gyarados set up. Eternatus rounds out the bunch as a straightforward Choice Specs attacker. Dynamax Cannon is a 100 base power special Dragon-type move that is like Behemoth Blade in that it doubles in base power against Dynamax targets. Eternatus will be using Dynamax Cannon in like 80% of situations, so its other moves are mostly filler. Sludge Wave is Stab that is occasionally useful in the doubles mode of this team. Flamethrower hits Steel types and Shedinja, and Eterna Beam is great for finishing off the last Pokemon if it would normally live a Dynamax Cannon or Draco Meteor, like Gastrodon for example. It also has a sick animation. Generally speaking, you'll want to lead off with Zacian with Eternatus and Gyarados in the back. Try to avoid Dynamaxing Gyarados regularly, as even with animations off, it still takes about 22 seconds to undergo the full Dynamax animation, which will add up over time if you're doing it regularly. Typically, you'll just be mashing whichever your most powerful attack is on the opponent. Zacian will win over half of your games in the Battle Tower by itself easily. Once you get the hang of how the team works, you usually don't have to really put that much thought into your moves, since you're typically just plowing through the Battle Tower Pokemon that really aren't meant to stand up to powerhouses like Zacian. Of course, however, there are still some threats. Some Pokemon, like Hitmonchan, Delibird, or Lucario, can potentially have Focus Sash and Counter, which is really annoying because it will one-shot Zacian. However, you can usually just go Gyarados or Eternatus afterwards, and easily pick right back up where you left off. Certain Pokemon like Qwilfish and Aegislash will resist all your moves, but aren't really a threat since you can just Swords Dance over them and still 2-hit KO with Behemoth Blade since they can't damage you too much. Chandelure is the only one you have to switch out against, since its Fire Blast can OHKO you, but both Gyarados and Eternatus can beat Chandelure easily. Ditto is probably the most annoying of the bunch. If it happens to have Imposter, which is a 1 in 3 chance, it will copy Zacian to a pretty scary effect. As you can see from this recreation of the Ditto situation, basically Zacian will copy the +1 attack from your own Intrepid Sword, but then Intrepid Sword will activate again on Ditto to give Ditto +2 attack. Even if you win the speed tie, you won't OHKO Ditto, so it's best to just sack off Zacian here and go into Gyarados afterwards. From there, Dynamax and use Max Bounce to gain enough speed to outpace Zacian. Zacian intentionally is not max speed, so Gyarados can outspeed it after a Max Bounce. Then, use Max Earthquake to deal the remaining damage. Don't be fooled by the damage from the Max Bounce in this mock setup. The Ditto doesn't have HP EVs, but the Battle Tower Ditto will. You will need the chip damage from Max Bounce to guarantee the KO. Afterwards, just sweep the remainder of their team with Gyarados and Eternatus. This counterplay the Ditto does have a pretty important caveat though. It doesn't work against Scarf Ditto. However, the odds of fighting against Scarf Ditto are very low. According to battle mechanics researcher Statistic Mystic, only 19 out of 82 possible trainers can have a Ditto holding a Choice Scarf. In addition, there's only a 1/3 chance of Ditto being Imposter. If it's not Imposter, Ditto is easy pickings for Behemoth Blade. Now, of these 19 trainers, the one with the best odds of getting that particular Ditto is 1 in 122. There's a good bit of math involved in determining the actual odds of a particular trainer having that particular Ditto, but in a very naive, simplified sense, it's roughly 3 out of 119. It's 3 because any of the opponent's Pokemon could be a Ditto, and it's 119 because there are other Ditto in the pool, and Battle Tower respects Species Clause. It's actually less likely than this, because if another Choice Scarf Pokemon was picked already, then the Choice Scarf can't be taken by Ditto because of Item Clause, but for the sake of this video, we'll just say it's 3 out of 119, even though it's actually worse than that. Now, all of the other trainers have even worse odds of generating Choice Scarf Ditto, since they have more Pokemon in their pool to choose from. But again, for simplicity, let's assume they all had the same odds of generating Choice Scarf Ditto, even though they would be worse. 19 out of 82 times 1 out of 3 times 3 out of 119 is 57 out of 9,758, which is roughly half of 1% odds to generate a Choice Scarf Ditto. After you account for the nuances in the math, I suspect it would be less than half of 1%. But even if you do encounter a Choice Scarf Ditto, it doesn't really matter, because losing in the Battle Tower has no consequences. You just lose a little bit of time. From experience, Ditto has been the only thing that has cost this team a game. But even if you play a Ditto, it really doesn't matter. In addition to your general opponents, every 10th battle will be against Leon. He has a predefined set of Pokemon, so it's helpful to know your game plan against his sets. If he leads with Haxorus, that's the worst case scenario, since it knows Dragon Dance and Reversal and holds a Focus Sash, which is a combo that will always KO Zacian. However, you can just go Gyarados afterwards and Max Bounce to win comfortably. If he leads Aegislash, you can just Swords Dance in his face and OHKO him the following turn in Blade form with Behemoth Blade. If he leads Cinderace, I typically just OHKO it, since it can either be Scarf, which won't kill but does a lot of damage, or Life Orb, which will KO you. Otherwise, you can Swords Dance freely against all of his other Pokemon. After you KO his first Pokemon, he'll go into Charizard and Gigantamax it. If you have a Swords Dance boost, Behemoth Blade will always OHKO his Charizard, but if you don't have a Swords Dance boost, you should switch out and either Gyarados or Eternatus will OHKO it. From there, it's easy to clean up his final Pokemon with one of your own. I'm not sure which of Gyarados or Eternatus is best to finish with. Dynamaxing takes 22 seconds, but it's immune to Mr. Rhyme's Fake Out flinch, and can threaten Aegislash with Max Earthquake, if either Mr. Rhyme or Aegislash are in the back. I'm not sure which is statistically faster to use, but either way, you'll win the battle easily. So that's the rundown for singles. In doubles, it's basically the same thing, but you use Zacian and Eternatus as leads, with Gyarados and Rotom Heat in the back. It works pretty much the same way, just click the strong moves and you'll win without thinking too hard. Rotom Heat is handy as a fire type to OHKO Aegislash and Ditto Zacian if it comes up, as well as having Helping Hand to boost the power level of Zacian and Eternatus. Note that Rotom Heat can only survive +1 close combat, not +2. Ally Switch is basically follow me in the battle tower. The AI will never predict Ally Switch, so you can spam it to make Rotom a sponge for single target attacks aimed Zacian's way. However, you'll hardly ever need Ally Switch in the first place, because Zacian and Eternatus usually mop the floor with the average team. You shouldn't play in doubles after reaching Master Ball rank though. I timed my experiences playing through the battle tower with good mashing and getting good RNG, and a run of 10 battles in singles was always faster than a run of 10 battles in doubles. I think even if you got perfect RNG in doubles, it'd still be slower than the average singles run. This is primarily from the extra animations and text you have to go through. It takes ever so slightly longer to input your moves each turn, and you have an extra fainting animation to sit through each game, in addition to more chances for opposing Pokemon to do something annoying, like use Protect. In my tests, I was able to pull off 10 games of singles in 15 minutes and 4 seconds, with another well-timed run with one bad game being 16 minutes and 39 seconds. Compare that to a couple sample runs in doubles, where I got times of 18:14 and 18:50 with comparable luck to my good singles run. For optimal BP grinding, I would strongly recommend singles as a result, even though my rental team is doubles compatible. Finally, it's worth mentioning that there are several tools for predicting your opponent's sets in the battle tower. Sadistic Mystic has a Google sheet of every Pokemon set in existence in the battle tower. It can be handy to sort this Google sheet for your own purposes. For example, I can sort by speed to create battle tower speed tiers. In addition, the Battle Tower Helper by Fusion Sage uses Sadistic Mystic's data as a useful tool for determining the sets of opponents if you prefer to play more cautiously. These and more resources can be found on the Smogon Battle Tower discussion thread, and I've linked all of these resources in the description below. Thanks for watching today's video. If you use this rental team, let me know how it works for you in the comments below. If you have any improvements to this team that you'd recommend, I'd also love to hear them in the comments below. I personally think Eternatus is the weakest link on this team, but I'd be really surprised if an optimal team didn't include a Zacian lead. I'd like to give special thanks to Jibaku, Pigeons, and Sadistic Mystic for working with me as I explored the options for the optimal battle tower team. Until next time, have a good one.